All right, welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice College Football Network. I'm your host, Cameron Honesty, joined as always by my co-host, Kenan Torres. First of all, I want to congratulate the Texas A&M women's volleyball team for the epic, and I mean historic win over the then undefeated Nebraska Cornhuskers. Those ladies are off to the Final Four to face Pitt on Thursday. I think it's like late afternoon. I mean, one of the best games of any sport I've watched in my entire life. I'm 31 years old, so it's kind of a long time. And I mean, I just want to say, like, we could talk all day about those girls. They were just incredible, and we're all cheering for them on Thursday. And so, but obviously, another huge game on campus this week as Texas A&M is going to take on the Miami Hurricanes in the first round of the college football playoffs. It's the first appearance for both programs in the CFP. And again, for those who have forgotten, very familiar, right? A&M and Miami have met twice since 2002. A&M defeated Miami in Kyle Field. I think it was during the 22 season. A&M went up to Miami, lost to the Hurricanes on the road in a kind of a late blowout loss, which we all kind of want to forget during the 2023 season. But either way, these are both two very, very good teams. They deserve to go. Miami getting in, kind of sneaking in at the end. Sorry about that. Over Notre Dame, obviously had the head-to-head win over the Fighting Irish, and they were a formidable opponent. Only 2 losses on the season, close losses to Louisville and SMU. And you and I both kind of done a deep dive as to what A&M needs to do. The advantages maybe each team has over each other. And there's a big reason why this is a 3-point game. A&M has a 3-point edge right now, according to the betting odds. And mainly that's because they're at home. But also, this is really should be one of the closest games of the weekend, especially given the other matchups on Saturday afternoon. So, you want to go in?
No, I think you're right. I think that 3-point spread, we've talked about it before, that really is more of a factoring in the home field advantage. A lot of times when you number crunch it. But then again, we aren't necessarily the experts on Miami football. So why don't we bring in someone who is more in tune with the Miami program? Come on up.
All right.
Oh, I think you are. There we go.
Hey guys, how are you doing today? Yeah, I just want to make sure no extra sounds came in. Appreciate you having me on the channel today. Getting ready for this game comes fast enough, right?
Oh yeah, I feel like it's. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I feel like this matchup was announced like a month ago, and the fact that it's only 4 days away, or really because we've been covering volleyball, we've been covering the schedule release, we've been covering all this stuff, and then this kind of just sneaks up. It's like, oh, A&M and Miami are playing in the freaking CFP. Probably going to shift focus to that with everything else we're doing with A&M sports. So it's a big one for both programs.
Well, that's the downside of having this massive sports program and one of the biggest conferences in America. You guys always have stuff to come on, even if the football program is always leading the way.
Sure.
For me, myself and my partner, we started a national college football show about 1.5 years ago on his original Miami Hurricanes channel. So we cover national football, but it originated as us being Canes fan wanting to talk about things besides just the Canes, especially when we're having crappy seasons or not necessarily meeting expectations. And then we spun it off into its own channel called College Football Express this past spring, and it's grown very well. And we've had been able to partner with a lot of great channels like you guys, and had some really great guests. We like to say we don't take ourselves very seriously, but we take the sport very seriously. We cover everything from weekly picks to, and I know I can't wait for this next season to come, because I know the off season is going to be involved in talking about NIL and Congress and realignment and all those other things. But we cover everything on that channel across the board. So that channel is very national focused, but I definitely am a Canes fan at heart, and that's what got me into all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to see people kind of branching out, especially people who are specifically one fan. And I think that we've seen people, Cameron, maybe you can attest a little bit more to this, but we've seen other people kind of grow in this industry as well, branching out, not just from their own fan sites or anything that they've created, but really overall to kind of better help the college football landscape. Especially in just having another discussion point or another person's point of view. So I think it's awesome.
Sure.
So one of the
Absolutely.
things we kind of wanted to talk with you tonight is there was news earlier today in one of the matchups that we were kind of looking towards where A&M has these explosive wide receivers, but on the Miami side, there was news that was broken today that Miami might be getting Keontae Scott back for this game. So Keontae, can you kind of go into a little bit more in depth about what he could bring to the Hurricanes?
I mean, Keontae Scott, and I think if you go back prior to him getting injured and you looked at the national coverage, so take off whatever perceived orange and green glasses you want, filtered glasses you want to put on me, he was being talked about as one of the best nickels in the country. So that, whether, and then he got turf toe, essentially. I don't know if they've officially reported that, but that's the unofficial reporting. Miami and Mario Cristobal are very close to the vest with injury reporting, as as many coaches are. Mario's particularly good or bad at that, which kind of amazed me how direct he was about the possibility that Keontae Scott was coming back. I had heard rumors last week that was a possibility, but it might be more likely if Miami were to defeat the Aggies and get to the Cotton Bowl. But I'm guessing the fact that he's going to be in this game, if he's even 80% healthy, it's a material difference for the Canes. He came in. He's probably a day 2, early day 3 draft pick. We'll see what happens. We got the combines. Things can change. But he was a key cog, and he just hits. That secondary was completely revamped. There's a lot of pieces that were very important to how Miami has been able to turn around what was the worst defense I've ever seen in my entire fandom as a Miami fan, and that says a lot over the last decade plus, where things have not been particularly great on a consistent basis. But he was kind of the leader on that defense. There are other players that you definitely want to keep your eyes on. Bryce Fitzgerald is a true freshman who has multiple interceptions from the beginning to the end of the season. Zachariah Poser, who's a transfer in and has done very well in that backfield. Xavier Lucas, who might be more famous in some people's minds because of the whole lawsuit and the transfer portal from Wisconsin. You don't actually hear his name a lot in the games because he's just covering people very well. Mm-hmm. But if Keontae Scott comes back at 80%, it is certainly a plus, not just for what he does and brings on the field as an excellent tackler, but also just his leadership on the field.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think we talked a little bit pre-show. I think me and Cannon have both kind of looked at this team. I've watched Miami most of the season. I've watched obviously both their losses. I've also seen them dominate down the stretch. I mean, blowing out 4 consecutive teams. And again, there's been this perception the ACC is not very strong. Pitt was considered one of the best teams. Miami completely handled them. It was like 38-7 or something like that. And it is hard to gauge just how good they are based on when you're comparing to the SEC. And a lot of people can say the SEC had a down year. So they can say that, and that's been a criticism with A&M of that they beat all these bad SEC teams, and including like an LSU team, beating them 49-25 in Baton Rouge. Isn't that impressive? Even though that probably isn't going to happen in Baton Rouge again. It's just the way A&M plays.
You can't control anything that happened with your schedule on paper in the summer looked a lot more impressive.
Exactly.
I would. My personal take would be, the way the schedule played out for Texas A&M, and you wound up having what turned into more of the bottom part of the SEC and handled your business, is kind of a different version to Miami's, where it was the middle-ish of the ACC for the most part, right? And I think it's probably fair to say that you can equate them to some degree, plus or minus on there. But obviously there's some big teams that A&M has played that have helped a lot of the metrics that the playoffs look at. Put Texas A&M higher in some categories, but they're close in a lot of others. I still don't really know why A&M is, 7th. I don't really get why I don't get why the Aggies are not 6th. I would personally have preferred that much more. I'm sure probably Aggies fans might have preferred that, at least in the interim as well. But I think there's a lot of mirrors to me in this game on these two teams. There's a lot of good on good. A lot of the same questions on the quarterback side. You can love them or hate them at various moments. So I think when you look at the schedules and how they both got there, it's certainly been some things that I think are similar in some ways.
Yeah, 100% agree, Cannon.
Yeah, we've talked extensively on this show before, but just why the rankings were what they were, and some of it, and we can all disagree or agree on what the committee's uh, final decisions were that night, but I think some of it was taking into the fact that preseason the Aggie schedule was looked at to be one of the harder schedules in the SEC, and then you get to the halfway point and people start to talk, saying maybe these SEC teams really aren't that good. We saw LSU play Clemson that first game of the season in a low-scoring affair, and then by the end of the season, it had turned out that the teams A&M did play ended up not being as good as the projected place where people had them, which is it's a little bit A&M's fault in beating those teams to make it worse. But
you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Miami is in a similar spot, not so much as much in the conference, right? But when Miami played the Gators were still ranked. When Miami played FSU, FSU was in the top 10 or something along those lines. USF, as an out-of-conference G5, but a high G5, was also ranked. So there was at one point where Miami's strength of schedule and strength of record was awesome. You can only play the games that are scheduled most of the time years in advance. I think what Miami did better and probably needed to do better at the end is not use the brake pedal as much in some of the earlier games and just learn your lesson, the lesson that they should have learned after the Louisville game, where even despite 4 interceptions, they were in a position to win that game. And a lesson that they didn't learn fast enough versus SMU, where you could do the Notre Dame thing and say that was a really bad penalty at the end of that game that cost Miami to probably lose that game. But my look at it was shouldn't have been in that position, should have been beating that team better, wouldn't have happened. That one play shouldn't have mattered, right? You shouldn't expect a call on the road, even if you think it's a bad call. So I think both teams did what they needed to do. They had a couple of stumbles. Your stumble was against, a big rival at the end there. You can give people grief for the South Carolina game. I can also give them a ton of credit for how the hell did you guys pull that game off? I still don't know.
That's
it was
still
unbelievable, right? It was amazing. Yeah. I remember watching every minute of it. So to me, I think, and I don't know, how you guys are seeing it from my side. I'm not seeing a lot of trash talk on message boards on the Miami side about A&M or vitriol. It's more like this could be a really good game.
Well, yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Ruben Owens, Texas A&M's running back, who we'll get into some of the injured guys who are expected to come back for A&M in a second, but he did make a comment just as a confident player saying, well, I'm not too afraid of their defensive line, which I saw. So it's kind of funny how the algorithm works. I'm just flooded with Canes fans and stuff. I'm going, where do these people come from? And they're just like, oh, he's giving fuel to fire. I'm going, okay, but if you go on the other side, I guarantee those guys are saying similar things, saying, well, we're not as scared of Cassius. We're not as scared of.
Honestly, I was referring more to the fan side on.
Oh, you're talking about fans, yeah. Well,
I have not seen
players are going to do that. Yeah,
I have not seen any comments on social yet. I'm not saying they're not existing. Yeah. I haven't seen. I don't even know if the players did. I don't know if it happened today because I would have missed it. If the players did their media day for the Canes to have those comments come out in the press. If it wasn't today, it'll be tomorrow that happens. But yes, I definitely the Canes fandom, and I'm sure the players definitely have heard both that comment and the comment last week when the matchups were happening about Ruben Bain. People know that. I just meant more of I think there's still a lot of respect about what Texas A&M has been able to do, and Elko and Canes fans are familiar with Elko and what he did at Duke from being in the ACC. So it does. I think there's a different dynamic into what this game is, and I just I expect it to be the best game that happens this weekend, far and away, even ahead of Alabama, Oklahoma.
Yeah, and my last point, I do think that's my thing. I agree with you. I haven't seen a lot of that. I do think it's fine though, and I think it's just good for the brand. It's good for the game to have both players kind of do some trash talk, because it just shows you, look, it's going to make it a good game. These guys are both confident. They're both going to play at a high level. You don't want them to go, well, I really, really respect them and I'm scared of them, so okay, I guess go Aggies. Come on, that's just dumb. These guys are football players. And so, but no, you make a good point there that Mike Elko and Mario Cristobal are obviously very familiar with one another. Cristobal praised his defensive acumen, I think early last week or a couple weeks ago, had a lot to say about that. They're both praising each other, saying, well, we know each other. We know kind of the tendencies. We know we've been watching each other's through most of the season. Coaches all do that because you just don't know who you're going to play, especially if you're going to CFP. You kind of watch everybody who's a contender. I guarantee they were watching Notre Dame throughout the season thinking they might play them again. But I think that coaching staff on both sides knows this is going to be a very tough game. If one team gets out to a big lead and sustains it, then you've shocked everybody. Because I'm going to be honest, I've seen some people say, well, it's going to be a blowout on either side. That ain't happening, in my opinion. I just do not see that one bit. I can see
Not at all.
I can see a team getting out early, but I can easily see, especially if it's Miami, but I can, and what I've covered and what I've seen all season, A&M adjusting the second half, playing in Kyle Field, which is going to be sold out. Almost guarantee that. It's going to be the loudest we've probably ever heard it because of just the gravity of this matchup.
For sure.
So, no, I'm personally very excited for it, but it is kind of funny that, yeah, it's been pretty silent for most of, not a ton of overbearing confidence for either further fan base yet, but we'll see. We got 4 days left, so
Absolutely.
yeah. So,
all right. Yeah, listen, I think it's going to be, to me, it's a couple of things that are fascinating. One, as a Canes fan, I am confident in our team, but I am worried about two things specifically. I'm worried about the offensive line, who's had a history of false starts over the course of the season, dealing with the 12th man and the loudness that's going to come there. It's not about that. I think it's an intimidation thing. They were already prone to those things, when nobody was there in certain ACC games, which has been frustrating at some levels because Mario preaches discipline, and a lot of things that they do are very disciplined, and the offensive line is his baby. They have cleaned it up recently, but Miami still is a pre-snap penalties juggernaut. And if that happens with the noise in Kyle Field, that's not a very comforting thing, knowing how effective Texas A&M is on 3rd and longs, right? Miami needs to avoid that, specifically to avoid being in that situation. And I'm definitely curious about how Elko, with the time he's had, right? Because 2 or 3 weeks, even if you might have been planning for Notre Dame, you were probably planning for mainly Notre Dame, maybe Miami, because if you bought into the ratings TV reality show, maybe a little bit of BYU, you're doing a little bit of
I think probably, those 3 teams. Yep.
I just want to see that chess match that is probably more between Elko and Shannon Dawson about the obvious of, Malachi Toney is been turning more and more into a lot of things as the season went on. I mean, he made a statement in game 1, but after the SMU thing, and there are mock T-shirts out in the Miami fandom about A gap forever because we were just getting frustrated with running into the A gap, and then it changed. It's almost like they realized that maybe we were all right, and they added Gerard Pringle in, which got a lot more speed and more chances to go to the outside. And even when they're hitting those gaps, he's just hitting them a little bit faster, and that split second could be a difference. But Toney, from that point on, they just started, they call it the Malley Cat now, right? It's not the Wildcat. It's whatever he's going to do. He's sometimes a better passer than I think our backup quarterback might be. And even Carson Beck on a bad day. But what does Elko do? Knowing, they know that's going to happen. How is Dawson scheming that, changing that up? And how is Elko trying to make sure that he gets his plays, but he doesn't get too many of those plays, right? That's going to be the interesting thing to me, of course, your all-world defensive lineman. How do those two lines match up? How do they match up on the other side? It's definitely a trench warfare. I'm not the first person to say that, but this is, I think, the definition of that. And I'm curious about how that all comes out. I think we'll see a lot of that in the first couple of drives, but we might see a lot of that, later on. Miami's offensive line has worn people out later, but Texas A&M is by far and away the strongest defensive line and the most talented roster that Miami will have played all year. It's it's a notch up. You could say Notre Dame, but we both beat Notre Dame, so we don't have to talk about them.
Exactly. We don't have to say it. That's a bygone, right?
Yes. So let's just be real.
I think it's interesting that you brought up the offensive line, because I think that's the big X factor for Miami. If that is not on point in this game, we've seen Carson Beck under pressure this year in certain situations. That A gap joke that you're talking about, right? So in that, do you think that there's anywhere that A&M, if you're looking at A&M and if they're not on par with that, or maybe it's just an X factor that maybe outwardly that we are not seeing because we cover the team and talk about these guys so much that maybe we are blind to from the outside world? What is the perspective of people just kind of looking in at the program as if this X factor or this product of the team is not on point, it could get ugly?
In terms of what we think we could exploit from the Texas A&M side?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, look, when you have somebody like Cassius there, I want to see how he's lining up. You guys are more familiar with how much he does or doesn't get moved around. I don't know if he's going to line up against
So
Kyler
I'll
Noah
say
at
this:
all.
it's going to be more this game because of how he performed against Trevor Gooseby, Texas's left tackle. He was actually shut down the entire game. It was probably his worst game of his career. I think
Right.
he's pretty pissed about that, and I think Elko and Jay Bateman both saw. I mean, we watched it was ugly, and he's too good of a player for that to happen again. So I think they believe that Miami's O-line is obviously very respectable. You got a couple future NFL guys on there. Get him around, move him around, find the weak spot, and then utilize his athleticism and speed to get after that.
Yeah, so if they're doing that, then I think you kind of want to put him on the inside on the right side, right? On the center and the left guard. That's probably where I would go if you're maneuvering him and if he can handle those guys. Because Markel Bell is really good on the tackle side. He's probably going to come back for another year, but he's going to be in the NFL one day. He's a really tall guy, though, so depending upon the size of the person he's going against, that can work for or against him. And remember, Miami's offensive line is elite on the passing side. They've had a couple of moments, but even in the games where Carson Beck was pressured, it's few times within the game relatively. And after those losses, he started to take off with the ball more. He actually looked better doing it. Almost like he got rid of some of the tentative part. He's certainly not your quarterback in any way, shape, or form running with the ball. But he was taking selective windows to make sure that he took advantage of that instead of maybe holding that extra half beat. The thing to me that I think I'm hoping for is that he can exploit your secondary a little bit more. I'm surprised with how good that defense is, that there's only been, 3 interceptions or something all year.
Yeah, it's just not what they do. It's not what they're.
And I've seen that happen when Miami's had a good secondary, and also was the same thing. And then other years where you get like Ruben Bain with an interception, right?
Yeah.
But Carson Beck has been so unbelievably efficient the last 4 or 5 games. But I'm also aware that they are not playing the same team. Notre Dame had a good secondary as well, right? On paper, they didn't have their best game in our first game. I don't remember what the hell happened in the game with you guys, because that was a scoring juggernaut that didn't really reflect what I would
defense
have
didn't really show up.
What either team would have done. It just turned into one of those things where it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. But he actually, was really taking advantage of those guys where people thought there was an advantage for Notre Dame with their returning secondary. So to me, that's the place that I think, as a Miami fan and just looking at it, I think is a part to exploit. On the flip side, if Texas A&M can try to figure out how to take advantage of our linebackers, they have moments when they're great, but it's probably the weakest unit, maybe the weakest unit on our defense and offense, period, overall. Miami has had a bad history recently of missed tackles, and as much improved as the defense is this year, Miami still has a lot of missed tackles. The thing that has happened for them that has made it not as painful as it was over the last recent years, now that Corey Heatherman is there, is that defense just swarms. So even when somebody doesn't tackle, it doesn't turn into another 20 yards because there's usually 2 or 3 people there to make up the gap. But there are some missed tackles, and they have to tackle better, which is another reason why if Keontae Scott is able to come back at any degree of health to be an effective person or on the field, it will definitely help the Canes in that regard.
Yeah, I can safely say that this game will be about tackling in space. It'll be about efficiency defensively. I agree with you that, but I will say against Texas, the reason Arch Manning was able to get some of those explosive plays off was because he was running the ball effectively. I mean, there was a gap. I mean, you talk about the A gap. He had all day to run through A&M's defense, and that just set up that load of the box. That set up opportunities to exploit some of the safety play. There's not a ton of speed in A&M secondary. It's more of these are efficient veterans who know where to be. They play with good leverage. It's just good coaching. But they're not elite athletes. I would say there are some issues there. They're trying to fix that through recruiting in the portal. Obviously, yes, Malachi Toney. I do believe that he's good enough even as a freshman to bracket in this game. C.J. Daniels is a guy who is a threat. Obviously, he has 7 touchdowns. One of the big play guys. I don't think he's as big of a downfield threat. He's not as explosive as Toney is. So, look, Elko's got a plan for that. But I'll kind of wrap it up with this on the A&M offensive side. I think me and Ken and I can agree. Marcel Reed, and I think that Canes fans and all the media guys like yourself know that where he thrives is play action.
Right.
I got to give credit to some of the Texas media guys that kind of pointed that out. You go to PFF, you look up the specific numbers. I think it's 8. You got to correct me on this, Cannon. I think it's 8 of his 10 interceptions is drop back. When you force him to make plays in the pocket, kind of like an NFL starter, it ain't great. Like, that's something going into this offseason, he has to work on that. He knows it too. He's a very smart young man. He's somebody who watches the film, knows that when the run game is doing well and you're averaging 5 yards per tote, getting a guy like Le'Veon Moss back, which is a big deal this weekend, which we do assume after watching him practice today that he will be back in the lineup. He's Brooks Austin, one of the best CFP guys out there. Really said like A&M left a ton of yards on the field without Moss on the field for the last 6 games. So if the run game can find something and give and kind of load the box a little bit, I think Marcel Reed's going to have a pretty good game. But this is going to be a quick passing game for that offense. I guarantee you that Colin Klein has been watching Miami's defense, knows that we need to get the ball away from Ruben Bain. We cannot allow him to tee off. We can allow this very good defensive line to tee off on Marcel Reed, because even though he can run, he does kind of the whoop-de-woo where he's kind of running backwards and then he's kind of trying to get the ball off. And sometimes that's when he'll throw a pick or get a turnover, and just he gets out of rhythm. He's really a rhythm quarterback. When he's in rhythm, he looks like a Heisman Trophy candidate. When he's not, he looks like a below-average quarterback, and that's what's hurt A&M in several games, especially against Texas. But I will say, I do think the angulatory he sustained against Texas completely hurt him at the end of that game. That's where those 2 interceptions came. He was just not feeling like himself. Texas kind of figured him out at that point, and I think they just want to flush that game. So I think you're going to see a much better performance from Marcel Reed. But like you said, I really respect this pass rush. I really respect the secondary getting a guy like Keontae Scott back. I mean, I don't see them struggling too much, but it's about utilizing that elite wide receiver rotation of Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, and Ashton Bethel-Roman, who were all back in practice, especially Bethel-Roman and Mario Craver were dealing with some injuries as well. They were looking fast, they're looking quick, they're looking efficient. So this is going to be a strength on strength type of thing. And this is why I believe it's going to be a very, very close game.
Yeah, listen, Miami has not seen Miami's played a couple of teams that have quarterbacks that have aspects of Marcel Reed, Kevin Jennings, Byron Brown for USF, but they're much different tier and not the full range of what Marcel Reed can do. The thing that's funny you say about Marcel Reed is it could be like he's either Heisman worthy or below average. That's kind of not the same style of play, but that's the same thing we've experienced with Carson Beck.
Carson Beck experience, yeah.
And, he's got 9 interceptions, but most of them are in 2 games. The rest of them are great. Most of the other games, he's like 75, 80% efficiency, and they're short passing, but there are some deep passes. Mm-hmm. You guys also have, Miami definitely wanted Casey Concepcion in the portal for sure.
Everybody does now.
You were the ones who beat us out. I can't remember who else was involved, but Concepcion and Carver are clearly the best duo that Miami has gone against. All the attention is getting to Malachi Toney. C.J. Daniels coming back. He was injured as well. Mm-hmm. So we'll, you can take some of his stats with a bit of a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. Marion has definitely done as well in the slot. You'll sometimes see Miami with essentially 2 slots out there because of what he can do as well as what Toney is. And you've seen JoJo Trader more and more emerge as a deep threat. I still don't think he's going to be in the top 3 in the rotation, but I don't know what's happened in practice the last 2 weeks. He definitely has that speed and that skills. There are some other deeper receivers that have made plays here or there, but clearly the 2 best receivers in terms of a tandem is clearly on the A&M side of the equation when it's all said and done. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this just comes down to which of the 2 quarterbacks makes the less mistakes. Right, and it could be the difference between 2 interceptions and 1. Maybe the difference on who's got a 3-hour flight or a 3-hour drive to Dallas.
Yeah, and I will say Marcel Reed, the only game where he really got away with it in terms of the turnovers was LSU. He threw 2 first-half interceptions, and mainly it was Casey Concepcion's punt return. It was just, Reed in the second half of games outside of Texas. That's really the only game where he just played poorly in the second half. He's played at another level. That guy, that was the reason he was a Heisman candidate down the stretch, because he just locked the F in, as I'll say. It was kind of crazy to watch. I've really never watched an A&M quarterback in a while play like that in the second half of games. It's just his confidence just goes to another level, and he's going to have to do that in this game. Like, that's the thing. You don't want him to throw picks, and again, he just came off a very bad game where he only threw for 180 yards, and he's also got, you know, the Texas bots and everybody coming after him, calling him this and that. I think he's going to be completely woken up and ready for this matchup. He's been studying Miami all week. He knows that it's going to be a challenge in the secondary. Like, he's faced tough secondaries throughout his career. But again, like I said, you're going to see a lot of quick passes. Get the ball out. He actually holds the ball. I think it's like 3.14 seconds. It's a little longer than you want. That ball's got to get out fast, and it's got to get out to your playmakers. Dink and dunk if you have to. But if they can't get the run game going, he's going to have to step up in the pocket. And we just haven't seen that yet this season. We saw a little bit of that against Missouri, but they were running the ball well in that game. So, again, the box did get loaded, and there were some openings for Ruben Owens to have a big game. But overall, yeah, this is going to come down to both signal callers. And look, they're both veterans. They're both experienced. They've both been in big games. And Carson Beck playing in the SEC previously, he's seen it all. I mean, we go back to that back and forth overtime game against Georgia Tech where he pulled him out of that one. The dude's a gamer. Everybody makes fun of Carson Beck. Like, look at all the bad interceptions and all. He's been pretty damn good this year, and they have literally the same stat. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Carson Beck's thrown for, I think it was like 3,072. Reed was 2,932. Both right. 25 touchdowns, both 10. It's like they're identical right now. It's kind of weird, but yeah, I think it's going to come down to both those guys of how they play at the end.
And I think there's one wild card, and not from the who's going to make a bad call from the refs is, not SEC refs, not ACC refs.
No,
there was multiple games where, Ruben Bain does not have the sack stats. It's a lot more of the pressures. There was multiple games where no holding calls were called against Miami's defensive line. And ACC is an amazing thing. I'm sure the SEC has a style of calls, like what do you get away with or not. Then we could talk about whether it was a bad call or not. We have I don't remember if it's the Big 10 or Big 12 officiating crew. It'll be interesting just to see how they call the beginning of the game on both teams. Not necessarily because I think someone's going to screw up a call, but there's tendencies that maybe come out in a game, and we'll see how they call things tight or not tight in different areas. That could affect both teams the same way, right? Because you both have defensive lines with tremendous rush. You guys have a tremendous pass rush and the third down defense. And what does Miami get less pre-snap penalties or more holding calls? Like, who the hell knows? That will be an interesting thing that it'll just be see what that trend is in the beginning of the first quarter.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this: if Chase Basantis, Texas A&M's left guard, knocks anybody down, they're going to call holding on that. So just expect that. I think, and me and Kenan have this theory that I think one of those refs watched his workout video and saw him squatting like 750 pounds. Like, and they go, that guy's too strong. If he knocks anybody down, that's a holding call. It's happened now.
He can't be mean. He can't be mean.
Yeah, he trapped a guy, and they called that. And I'm like, we're still doing that in 2025. I mean, okay, that's all I got on the refs, but we'll see. I think it's going to be pretty equal, but I don't know if it's going to favor A&M much. I think it's the CFP. It's just different. I
just mean style. I don't mean that it's like a bias towards one or the other.
I think Kyle Field will do that. I think they'll affect, that's what they're for.
I'm glad it's an 11 a.m. game.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of Aggies out there. And I think before we get you out here tonight, kind of give us your final thoughts and kind of where you see kind of the game script going with this game.
I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a field goal. Of course, I'm optimistic and hoping for it to go on the Miami side, but I'm thinking it's a 24-21, 27-24, not really decided to the end. I'm glad that Miami's a very good kicker who remarkably was fairly terrible before he got to Miami and has been like lights out for wherever. That's my take. I wouldn't be surprised if it went any way whatsoever. The only thing I know for sure about this game is that whoever wins, I'll be rooting for against Ohio State.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think a lot of college football fans can say this is the most enjoyable game of the weekend, but it's probably the hardest draw out of any team, whoever wins.
Absolutely. So. You'll have earned your next step in the playoffs, getting through this game, whoever emerges on the winning side.
Exactly. And teams whoever wins this game, I think a lot of people are kind of predicting that team could get hot, especially if that team is someone like an A&M who just drives up to Dallas for a Cotton Bowl, or Miami who comes into College Station and wins a game against 110,000 screaming fans the entire time.
Yeah, and the
Ohio
second
State was
longest
screwed.
distance too. Yeah,
Ohio State was screwed either way because they either had to choose potentially having the Cotton Bowl and being a thing for Texas A&M fans to have a lot of them to have easy access, or playing at Hard Rock in the Orange Bowl. It's so sad.
So sad.
Oh yeah. I'm still laughing about the Julian Sayin video, where they're showing. I'm like, this is your Heisman candidate, man. This is I'm just like he's good, but it was a weak class. It was I was like watching a high school recruiting video when I was watching. I'm like, wait, that's what got him in the high. And then you look at Johnny Manziel and all these incredible performances, and you're like, okay, that's
the most exciting thing about the Heisman was the backlash afterwards, right?
Yeah. I just can't. Well, no, I mean, looking at Fernando Mendoza's numbers, I think they're calling him the worst winner ever, even though he deserved, I guess. I mean, Marcel Reed had equal, was it equal or more yards?
A lot of people did, I think.
A lot of people, yeah, exactly. A lot of people had
it's
more.
The one thing that will always help you, right, is undefeated.
Yeah, it's a team thing. I was telling my dad that. He's like, wait, I don't get this. It's just team. He's like, yeah, it's just team now. It's just how well your team's doing, and if you represent them well, you have enough good. The numbers are good enough, right? And it's like, okay, well, why did Jaden Daniels win then?
Yeah, I mean, I can make an argument that the reason Jeremiah Smith didn't win is because Julian Sayin wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's actually true. Oh man,
Jeremiah Smith is still Jeremiah Smith. He just didn't get the ball enough to him in the beginning of the season while he was developing. And that's not a shot at Julian Sayin. It's just the reality of if Jeremiah Smith in his second year with the senior quarterback probably has a better year and is probably the one that goes to New York instead.
And
I also watched Julian Sayin. Yeah, I also watched Julian Sayin have an hour in the pocket. So I mean, he literally just had hours. He's just 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll go to you.
I don't think I've ever seen him be able to make a sixth read more than.
He wasn't actually doing a read. He was trying to help Penn State with their coaching search.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, he sold, as the kids say. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, do we want to do predictions right now?
We can do predictions right now. I think Rucker and Rant gave us one that he thinks. I mean, he kind of thinks it's a Miami wins and covers.
We can do ours right now. I actually agree because you have to correct me. Miami hasn't allowed 28 points all season.
I do not believe so.
Yeah,
I have to look it up, but I think that's.
And I don't know if A&M is going to score that much. I do think it's going to be in that 24-21 range. I'm actually going. I personally think it's going to be 24-20, 24-17 type of game. I think it's really who plays the best in the second half. I think this has to be. I could easily see this being a close game, like what we saw against Mississippi State early in the year, where A&M Marcel Reed was just too hot out of the gate. He was overthrowing receivers. You never know how pumped these guys are going to be on both sides. I mean, they've been getting ready for this game for 3 weeks now. You haven't played football in a while. It's kind of different than the guys who played in their championship games, and then they're going to play a first-round game. I'll say this, Alabama, Oklahoma on Friday night, I think that's going to be the ugliest game we watch in a long time. It's going to be a slug. I think non-football fans are going to be like, what am I watching here? Type of game where I'll love it. I love those games. But I do think that A&M's defense is going to send a message in this game. I think they're going to be all over Carson Beck throughout most of the day. But I could also see a scenario where he has a ton of time to pass because maybe these guys just weren't preparing for Miami's O-line the way they should have been, kind of like they were against Texas. They just weren't as disruptive late in games. But I will say the threat of having an Arch Manning run on you isn't there with Carson Beck. So I do give A&M's defense a good chance to have a very, very good game and keep them below more than 20, 21 points. So I am going to say 24-20 A&M. I kind of feel it. I just feel like this team is here to send a message after they lost. I think Kyle Fields is going to help a lot. I think if this game was on the road, I'd probably pick Miami, to be honest with you. But I just really believe in Kyle Field, and especially after A&M came back the way they did against South Carolina. I get that's a lesser team. It's not that roster cannot be compared to Miami's, but first CFP game, Mike Elko, Jay Bateman, Colin Klein, this is their last games as coordinators. Potentially, I think they're going to I don't think they're distracted at all. These guys talked today. I think they're locked in with this team. They feel like they are more than good enough to make a run. But again, I could be completely wrong. But I'm going to go with A&M 24-20, like I said.
Cool. I think I'm a little bit different. I think that this is going to be more of a slightly higher scoring game, just because I've seen both of these teams be a little bit susceptible to the big plays. That's kind of the way people have scored a lot on, at least I've watched more in-depth Texas A&M, and I think they're around 70th in the nation in big play percentage, like stopping. I don't know the exact Miami one, but even though Miami has been able to keep most of their opponents, if not all of them, under 28 points, I think the way that they've been either scored on or most of the ones, at least that I've seen, are a little bit more of the outside the red zone kind of plays, if that makes sense, Rock and Rant. So I think that those plays are going to happen in this game, whether it's broken plays, whether it's Ruben Bain or Cassius Howell flushing the other QB out of the pocket, and someone just being able to find someone for a little bit of a broken play that goes for a ton of yards. I think that's kind of how this makes sense in my mind. So with that in mind, I think this is going to be a little bit of higher scoring, but I think it's going to be more along the lines of definitely still close. I think this is going to be the first game that both teams are going to have, 28 plus, and it's going to be down the stretch. So I think I agree with you, Cameron, and you, Rock. I think this is going to be a very, very close game, but I'm leaning more towards Rock's way of going really by a field goal. Whoever kind of gets in that hyper focus down the stretch, maybe the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. So I think I'm going to go A&M by a field goal, 31-28. It's a little bit of higher scoring, but I think it still makes sense to the point where both of these teams are going to have those plays of, oh my goodness, how did they get to this point where it's like a 25-yard gain to Mario Craver, Ashton Bethel Roman, or even someone like, like Alex Bauman for Miami, where it's just completely
tight end over the middle when they're keyed down on Malachi. All those things can happen.
Yeah, something like that.
All over the field on this game. Playmakers make those kind of plays, right? The quote of the big plays in the big game. So if you got, the A&M and Notre Dame game went into the 40s, nothing would shock me if it turns differently, but I would be only surprised if it just isn't a close game.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that any of us are predicting a blowout, and I think that's what makes sense.
No, and I think if it does come down to field goal kicking for A&M, that's a problem. They've had kicking issues all season. Yeah, Randy Bond, and we have no idea who the starting kicker is even going to be. I think it's probably going to be Jared Zirkle, I would think, because I guess he won that job against Stanford.
We'll see. I think they're still going through it right now.
Yeah, Randy Bond's been doing kickoffs. I think it just depends who kicks the best in practice this week. But Mike Elko does not want to depend on his kicker. He will tell you that up front. They need to find the end zone as much as possible. They can't rely on that. Miami can, so they would hope that they at least have a bigger lead instead of a situation where Miami would come down there and win with a field goal.
Well, you guys have that crowd. You can scream the ball through the goalpost because we got like 12 tickets for this game for the Miami fans. So
yeah. You're in one section, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in like one section, and there'll be scattered things all over the place as people scramble to get any tickets from anywhere. Yeah. That's not a reflection on A&M. That's just what the College Football Playoff Committee allows.
It's just
A&M definitely agreed to do the minimum.
Yeah, I will say that Scooby Williams, Texas A&M senior linebacker, we did mention tight ends. A&M has had a problem covering tight ends, especially more effective tight ends who aren't just guys who stand out there and block. He is a big part of their run defense and in their coverage unit against bigger wide receivers. So he will be. I do believe Jay Bateman even basically spilled the beans and said we expect him to be back in this game. He's played only 5 games this season, but he's extremely effective against the run. He's just a bigger body. He really helps that linebacker group go. And they've had issues with run fits. I mean, that's one of the things you worry about. I've seen a lot of Miami fans go, "Oh, look at A&M's run defense has allowed over 200 yards in 4 games. Yeah, that's a weakness. That's an area where if your run game is doing well and your guys are blocking downhill, and A&M's linebacker rotation, especially Torrin York, who has sniffed out screens, he's been excellent everywhere else, but those run fits have been an issue early in games. They getting chunk yards to the air just opens up the pass game. So hopefully getting Zuby Williams back will be actually equally big as Le'Veon Moss to A&M's run game will be for their defense. So. But,
look, it's good that we're going to have everybody as healthy as possible.
That's what I want.
There's no excuses, right?
That's what I want. I want everybody healthy. So whoever wins or loses this game, there's no, well, he didn't play, so that hurt us here. It's like, yeah, I don't. And I think that was the plan all along, because a lot of people had thought that Le'Veon Moss could have played against Texas. He didn't. There's still fans today, even watching him practice, I saw, goes, I'm not confident he's going to play. I'm like, why is he practicing right now? I don't. Whatever. I'm not in the minds of fans, but it's
that's a hard one to try to put yourself in the minds of the most extreme of your fan base.
Because he didn't play against Texas. I think the plan all along was they knew they were going to be in the CFP. That game was pointless outside of going to the SEC championship game and possibly getting a higher seed. I still think the the committee would have dropped them either way. I just don't think they really liked A&M. But honestly, having everybody 100% ready for this matchup, that's what we're all wanting to watch. So, I mean, I'm happy that even Miami's getting their guys back. You want strength on strength. That's what makes it just good football. So,
absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully Friday night's game is good, but I'm pretty confident that Saturday early game will be good. And after that,
I think there's a reason they put it on Friday night. I'm going to be honest with you. But I shouldn't say that, because they scheduled JMU and Oregon for the primetime game. I guess they were like, well, nobody's going to watch that because they'll be watching Chicago and Green Bay.
It's the NFL thing. That's why ESPN sold those 2 games off to their partner and gave them those games. Is they just assumed the NFL will win like last year.
But Mike Elko, Mike Elko's right. Just put the ball down. He would have wanted to say, like, put the effing ball down, but just put the ball down. We're going to play whatever time. We don't care.
He won't say flipping? Like,
no. Exactly, flipping. he just say the word, but you can't do that with the media because it won't be good. But I think both these teams are physical. They want to play physical football, and they don't care what time they play. It's just you got in the CFP. And you know what's funny? We talk about similarities here. Both these teams were almost not going to be in this tournament. Like, think about all the variables that occurred. I mean, we were covering A&M down 27-3 at one point. I'm talking to my writing team at Aggies Wire saying, are we going to even get in here? Like, are we going to be covering CFP? One of them said, yeah, probably not. And then they just mount this historic comeback.
Amazing.
They go undefeated through outside of losing to Texas the way they did. We knew they were going to be in here, and I did think Miami was going to get in. I just think they were better
than me. I did not.
Yeah, I actually did. I just thought
they should be in. I just didn't think the committee had. I mean, I just been going off on the committee for weeks because they weren't following their process, and I went through and did all of the data. I went through the 12 metrics that have been demonstrated to media walkthroughs of how they did it, and they were not paying attention to it. So that Tuesday prior to the final one, when they didn't flip Miami and Notre Dame, I was just convinced that why would they do it next week? It made no sense. There was nothing happening in that final week of championship games that's going to fundamentally change Miami versus Notre Dame. But you know what? Maybe it is a reality show.
Yeah, it's one I don't really like watching. I didn't really find it very entertaining.
That. Just tell me the damn rankings and be transparent about the metrics. It's not like there's a competing college football league we need to worry about.
It's content. That's what I hear.
It's a lot of money that goes around, guys.
Yeah, I know. It's like the world. Yeah,
it's a lot.
You can still do a ranking show without the committee weighing in. You can
have Hunter Yurachek up there like he's
say,
like
this is
he's
what
in
we
jail.
Think it would be, and here's our model. And you can have 19 SEC teams in ESPN if that makes you happy. I know there's not 19.
It's like, and just getting Yurachek up there with the the stern face, like, yeah, well, we did this because of this metric. I'm like, okay, dude, like you look like you're under like in jail, like giving an interview or something.
They had a big lead at halftime over Auburn.
Hey, who wants to tell me why Yale at like 11-1 wasn't put in? So I'm just saying.
Ivy League bias. That's probably what it is. They're just jealous of the Ivy League.
Absolutely.
Oh, come on, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on the show. That's fantastic. I think it was the best
No
preview
worries.
we could have had. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think that this matchup was just perfect. I mean, it's perfect on paper. It's been actually very fun to cover. It's been very fun to. I'm doing the kind of comparing stats articles tonight to just kind of look at the similarities and just all the strengths and how this team kind of got to where they were. And it is true, like you said at the beginning of the show, these teams are very similar. They've beaten teams in very similar fashions. They've had those runs. They've had those moments where they look a little weaker. Obviously, Miami dropping 2 games and only dropping 1, but very similar losses in a way. And yeah, I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend. I think it might be the best game we see in the CFP. We just don't know how all these games are going to go. But I think when you get 2 teams that are so evenly matched, it's just perfect for football fans. And I'm actually happy for football fans, right? Because if your team didn't make it, which a lot didn't, you're going to have to watch this game, and you're going to get to finally see these 2 teams that the media had talked up a lot this season.
Yes.
Miami was considered the best team in football at the beginning of the year, dropped off a little bit. A&M was too. Then they kind of dropped off a little bit. So for those of us who don't cover these teams, who don't watch these teams professionally and get paid for it, this is your chance to watch really good football. So I'm really glad on that end. So, but yeah, man, I really appreciate being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, man. We'll talk soon. I guarantee it. So
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Enjoy the game.
Yep. All right, man. Yeah. So both of us have to go pretty soon, but I will say that outside of this game, we did get some news, obviously, and we can talk about this just very quickly, of A&M's 2026 schedule release.
Yeah.
That was released last Thursday. You and I really didn't go into deep discussions. We were probably pretty busy through the weekend. But
to say the least.
Yeah. But personally, I think this is one of the most favorable schedules they could have gotten. I'm going to be honest with you, compared to even this season. I mean, we talked about it. Rocker Rant kind of mentioned it, like you can only play who's in front of you. That's been my thing all year. I've been defending A&M in that way of like, this was a tough schedule on paper. Nobody thought that A&M was going to go into South Bend and beat Notre Dame. They didn't think they were going to win 3 consecutive road games. And yeah, some of those teams outside of Notre Dame ended up being worse. But at the same time, it's a gauntlet, and you don't have 3 consecutive road games. You actually get a bye late in the season at a perfect timing before you have kind of a tough stretch with Oklahoma and Texas at the end of the year. And you get to play in some new venues, which I think is great. I mean, getting to play in Oklahoma for the first time since, I don't know, early 2010s, I would think.
It was like 2009.
2009 even? Yeah. Oof, man, I was 15 years old, I think, then. But yeah, I think based on, we'll be talking about it all offseason, however far the A&M goes in CFP, what this roster is going to look like, what, like, especially this O-line is going to look like with guys we know are departing anyways for the NFL and graduation. But if the key spots where A&M has thrived this year and getting a guy like Hemphill elevated to DC, how the defense is going to look under his eye, and the staff that A&M is building there, that we've gotten a couple announcements even today with future additions, I think they can easily win 9 to 10 games, just depending how much drop off there is roster wise. But overall, yeah, I would give this schedule like an A. I think A&M fans are always wary. You know, they don't know which teams are going to be as good like that, and that's the thing. We don't know that either. But yeah, in my opinion, and I'm going to get yours in a second, I think this is probably the best thing they could ask for.
Definitely. I think you look at the schedule and you're like, oh, only one bye week is going to be brutal. But then you also play a Citadel team who is like for years has not been very good.
Yeah.
So you could call that a pseudo bye.
Yeah.
And people are going to ask and tell. They're gonna say, well, why are people just scheduling these FCS teams? Well, they're not necessarily still incentivized to schedule them unless you have predetermined agreements like they do with Arizona State for the next 2 seasons and then Louisville the next 2 after. So I think that when you have the gauntlet that you do, the final 5 games of the season, you look at it now where we were before this season looking at the gauntlet that we had coming up in November. Right. So you and I were definitely thinking, oh, you have South Carolina, you have Texas, you have all these teams that we thought we were going to be at least brutally physical. Turns out teams near the end are getting just as tired as other teams are. So who knows what those final 5 games of the schedule could be? Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama. We don't know yet. So I think it could be advantageous. I think I'm going to give it a B right now if I were to give it a letter grade, just because of the unknown that we know right now. I think post portal, I think I'll be able to give it a little bit more of a gauge. But as of right now, it looks to be really, really fun, especially if we are thinking that A&M is going to have some returning talent coming back.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the biggest thing. Like once we know what this final roster is going to look like, we're going to obviously after the CFP, like they're not. There's not obviously a lot of transfer movement or anything like that because A&M is playing football still. There's the portal isn't officially open yet. Guys are just entering their names. There's a lot of intriguing names already, especially at wide receiver. Knowing that, and Casey Concepcion actually said yesterday that he has not made a decision regarding his NFL future. Which look, if he came back, I wouldn't be completely shocked because of NIL and because these guys are getting paid and they are playing on quote unquote contracts. So it isn't like it used to be where you want to just get out of there as soon as possible to get paid, start your NFL career. Will it benefit him to come back? I would think it would, but that's up to him. That's up to his family. But if he does leave, you do know you have a hole there to fill that you really want to get done in the transfer portal, get another veteran to join that team. But I will say quickly, the 2 additions that they did make today, starting with Tim Williams, who was the defensive coordinator at Arkansas, one of the better recruiters in the SEC. He is expected to join the staff under Lyle Hemphill as in a defensive role.
He's going to be
the linebacker coach. Yeah, sorry.
Travis Williams.
What?
Travis Williams?
Well, I'm sorry. Did I say Tim Williams?
Yes.
Sorry. Travis Williams. Yeah, sorry about that. A little tired here. But he is expected to join as linebackers coach. Who I was referencing was Zach Sparber, who was just announced tonight, is joining the defensive staff. I'm guessing in like an analyst role or something like that. Mm-hmm. So Lyle Hemphill is filling out a staff pretty quickly. I think he's getting guys that are very similar in that they are great recruiters. They're great position coaches with defensive coordinator experience. That's like the best thing you could have. Having, Holman Wiggins now, I guess we probably could have said at the beginning of the show, is officially the offensive coordinator starting in 2020.
Big news.
Yeah, you and I both predicted that would happen. And I think that, what we basically said was like continuity. He knows this roster. Marcel Reed returning next season. He understands the offense that he needs to thrive in. Like he's been one of the better recruiters. He's been developing wide receivers to become NFL stars. They're all littered across the NFL right now during his time at Alabama. He was an assistant head coach at Alabama. That is a prestigious position under then head coach Nick Saban. So you can trust him. I think a lot of people are starting to learn that. Some were disappointed that there wasn't some big name that Elko pulled out of a hat. And, look, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's about production. So you can judge him based on how they perform next season, but being disappointed because it's not another name or something like that doesn't make any sense because we don't know how some of the bigger names, I guess, around the rest of the country are going to perform. But either way, it is good to see that Elko is he's doing everything he can to fill these staffs out as quickly as possible while preparing for, the biggest game in Texas A&M history right now. So, I mean, you got to look ahead already. You got to prepare for 26, even though you're still playing, because right when your season ends, you're on to 26. You're on to the offseason, building this new roster and getting prepared to make another CFP run.
Yeah, that's just how the cookie crumbles. I mean, that's how the college football landscape is now.
Yeah, it's just never ending, which it's fun for us. I mean, having news and stuff to cover, I mean, great for everybody. But yeah, overall, I will say, yeah, it's going to be a better offseason, I think. And even if they do end up, knock on wood, losing to Miami, it's still been a very successful season, and they have a lot to work towards. But if they can beat Miami and face Ohio State, we're going to have a lot of fun on this channel. So anyways, yeah. So we will be back most likely on Sunday to do a recap of A&M's first round CFP game versus Miami. So we will be back then. We're going to plan around Tuesday. Obviously, we're starting into the holiday. We'll see about availability and stuff like that. I do expect to have a show on Tuesday. We'll see. We'll work around that.
I think it's currently in the plans that we are going to.
Yeah, we'll work around that. Obviously, with the holiday and stuff, everybody's a little busy on that end. But yeah, I just want to thank Rock Rant. Glenn was fantastic. I mean, that's probably the best preview I've had for a while with the game. Just a lot of information. He really laid out Miami's strengths, and I think we did a pretty good job of just showing that this is a strength on strength matchup, and that's all we want. Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I'm very excited for it. So, as always, you can follow me at Cameron Honesty on X. You can follow Cannon at Torres Cannon. You can follow all my work at Aggies Wire. We're going to start really hitting hard the coverage pregame, getting our predictions out, getting kind of the thoughts on, the matchups and where A&M can really exploit, Miami's defense, all that good stuff. So where can everybody find all your recruiting updates, Cannon? There's a lot of good stuff going up. So huge
recruiting coming up, for especially if you guys are interested in 2027 football recruits. You can find me over at Bell Tower Intel over on Patreon. So for all your football and basketball recruiting needs for Texas A&M, you could see some fireworks here very, very soon. So definitely come on over.
All right, guys. As always, gig 'em. Let's hope for a win. Let's hope that this ride continues because, I want to see Texas A&M versus Ohio State. Very, very bad. So
in the contest,
yeah, I know. But either way, getting to watch A&M CFP is good enough. So, all right, guys, we'll see you on Sunday, and have a good night.